Hello, welcome to our 6th grade instructional screencast. Today we will explore different resources and activities that you may use to teach the Cold War and promote inquiry with your 6th grade students. Let's go ahead and get started. A question that I am commonly asked by students is, what is a Cold War? Why is it called that? So I like to use this little definition before we begin the subject. A hot war versus a cold war. A hot war refers to a traditional war where two countries have a disagreement and they fight each other directly. While a cold war refers to when two countries have a disagreement but they fight each other indirectly through other countries. The two countries in question during the Cold War are, of course, the USA and the USSR. A useful metaphor to use when teaching about the Cold War is the firefighter and the United States. So from the perspective of the United States, communism was spreading like wildfire at the conclusion of World War II. The USA saw themselves as the firefighters in charge of ridding the world of communism. Whenever there was a new communist country or new communist fire that might pop up in the world, the United States tried its best to erase it and put out the fire. Many people are surprised at how well Dr. Seuss fits with social studies content. He was an avid political cartoonist, as can be seen in a cartoon berating the USA for not joining World War II sooner. He would apply the same philosophy to many of his children's books. We are going to examine one of my favorite books today called the Butter Battle book. This is one of my favorite ways to teach about the Cold War. You have the students read the Butter Battle book, and the students are immediately taken in by the fact that this was actually a banned book, so you have their attention almost instantly. The story is based on two groups of people that have different philosophies as to which side you should butter your bread on, up or down, as you can see in this photo here on the right. The book follows two sets of people building a wall, developing bigger and badder weapons, and the students will see similarities immediately between the book and the program of mutually assured destruction. So here you can see in the photo they have weapons that are getting larger and more elaborate as the years go on, and again there's a nice chart here of mutually assured destruction and the number of weapons that the United States and the USSR were developing during the Cold War years. The wall that separates the two groups of people was based on the Berlin Wall, is repeatedly addressed throughout the book, as they develop more and more weapons until the last scene where each have developed the ultimate weapon, the atomic bomb, and are threatening to use it on each other. This is a very poignant way to end the story, as it shows a lot of how fearful Americans were during the Cold War years, that at any moment the atomic bomb may drop in the United States. And it's a great conversation piece to have with your 6th grade students. I like to have my students do a T-chart comparing the fictional Butter Battle book with the Cold War. The students will have many connections to choose from. This can be done at the beginning, middle, or end of your unit. So for instance, in the Cold War, you have the wall dividing East and West Berlin. The Butter Battle book, you have the wall dividing people who butter their bread on top versus those who butter their bread on the bottom. In the Cold War, you have different belief systems about the correct form of government. Butter Battle, different beliefs as to the correct way to butter your bread. Cold War, democratic and communist governments build up large stores of weapons. In Butter Battle book, they are also developing bigger and bigger weapons. Cold War, one side drops the bomb, the other side would drop a bomb, which is called mutually assured destruction. And Butter Battle Book, if one side uses the weapon, the other would drop their weapon as well. So the comparisons go together perfectly, and your students will get a lot from this. You can also have a conversation about Dr. Seuss's opinion on the Cold War, what they believe it was based upon this book, and why they think it was banned in the first place. Moving on, but another interesting way that you might talk and teach about the Cold War is a type of primary source analysis called zoning. So what zoning is you start off with a picture where most of it is covered and ask students questions based upon the small section of the picture that they can see. You may use the same questions each time, or individualize the questions based on the picture, the part of the picture that you're focusing on. So for instance, I'm doing individualized questions with this example. You might say, where do you think this is? Keeping the question rather vague so that students can answer it in many different ways. They may say, oh, it's the United States, or oh, it's New York City, or oh, it's someplace cold, or oh, it's a rich neighborhood, or oh, it's a poor neighborhood. Keeping it vague at the beginning, and then you will ask more detailed questions as you reveal more of the picture. Following up, you might say, is this a bad part of town, do you think, or a nice part of town? What do you think is in the painting in the corner? Where are they? Again, asking a little more details, drawing their attention to different aspects of the picture. Following up, has your perception changed about the picture? What's the topic of the mural? Can you tell? Why was it painted, do you think? Would you call the paintings a mural or graffiti? What is it painted on? Obviously you can see it's painted on a wall, but what is the wall separating, do you think? Building these questions up to make them focus in on key elements of the photograph. And then finally, when you have the entire picture revealed, you might ask them, compare one side of the wall with the other. What differences do you see? So hopefully they'll note things like one side there's a nice sidewalk, the closeness of the buildings on one side versus the other side where they're much further away from the wall. The very fact that only one side has access to the wall. Looks like the other side, which is obviously East Berlin, has soldiers separating the general public from the wall. And then you can see that there is no graffiti on one side of the wall versus the other, and have conversations about why that was. So this concludes our screencasts. I hope that you will be able to use these resources that you found in our presentation in your classroom to have some great conversations about the Cold War. I want to make sure that you know that all resources that you found in this presentation were available through Digital Commons and WikiCommons. And thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you have a great school year.